All right, good afternoon, everyone, or for some folks, West Coast, good morning. We're here for another episode of Dyslexia Success Stories. And I'm very pleased to be on here with Amber and her daughter, Rory. We'll talk about some history of struggles and also some powerful successes. And so part of the goal of these discussions is to give you a picture of where were the skills before, where did the skills get to immediately after, evidence-based intervention, and then what's happened 1, 2, or however many years. You have to, do the math for me, Amber. How many years has it been since we
5.
finished that work? Has it been 5 years, Rory?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Kristen got married when I was in Trinidad, so.
All right.
She just had her 5th-year anniversary.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, Amber, you also have worked as a advocate for parents, so you understand the system, but you've also been a parent with not just one child who's got dyslexia and some learning challenges, but your other daughters had struggled some too, and then your husband had some struggles lifelong with dyslexia. And I think Rory's running joke was, "Dad can't spell." Dad can't spell anything.
Yeah, we have a bunch of interesting little anecdotes. She realized Dad could not spell after she was intervened with you. And, then it was like, "Mom, he spells salad, SALID.
Just how
It's like you completely ruined his grade. But anyway.
That's it. Well, Amber, give us the big picture. What was the trajectory? Everyone has their own story of when things were noticed, when you realized something wasn't going well. And you guys, caught it earlier and did a lot to try to make some changes. And then we didn't meet up until Rory was about 16. And as we'll say, and that's when the wheels were coming off the bus. All the accommodations weren't helping anymore. You can only work so hard. There weren't any more hours in the day. But give us the background piece of what got us up to that point.
Well, when Rory was in kindergarten, her teacher started telling us, that she was a little behind. That it was going slow for her, but she was going to catch up. And one of the things that happened in kindergarten, which amazes me that this happened in kindergarten, but they were kind of doing round robin reading around the table. And I guess, and this has been, 15 years ago or longer when she was in kindergarten. But just how children are and how children in our households change our values and, cultures and what have you. But when in kindergarten, when they were reading around the table, she messed up on what some little thing she was supposed to be reading. And the children laughed at her at, 5, 6 years of age. And Rory went under the table. And so she had this huge emotional, experience that was very bad for her, as well as just having this typical experience that some children have of being a little bit slow, to catch on. The teacher actually told me this happened. Her husband, who was a psychologist, was sitting in the room, and he told his wife, "You will never do this again. That, you will not expose children to this opportunity to be laughed at." And so that was, felt like a learning experience for, at least the teacher. So we progressed on to 1st grade, and the same story, she's a little bit behind, but she's so smart. We know she's going to catch on. And I'm asking, what can we do? Well, you can read at home with her 20 minutes a night. This progresses on to 2nd grade. We had a brand new teacher in 2nd grade, just out of college. And Rory finally was in the lowest reading group. They had, red birds, blue birds, yellow birds, whatever. And Rory was in the lowest reading group, finally just with the teacher. And I asked the teacher, I said, "Well, what do you work on?" She said, "Well, we're working on sounds." And, we've taken it very, far back, but she's so smart. And I said, "Well, can we do, special ed testing?" "Oh, we don't do that here." And I said, "Yes, you do. You're a public school." And, just like, okay. And Rory is miserable. I mean, every day I would drop her off at school, she's crying. When I pick her up from school, she's crying. She's telling us all evening how stupid everyone thinks she is at school. She also had sensory issues, so she did not want to hold hands when they went on field trips. So it got to the point she'd have fits about that. So she couldn't go on field trips unless one of us tagged along. I mean, there would be days that I would just be like, if I get a call today about you having an issue, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to take you to the restroom and we're going to have an attitude adjustment. Mm-hmm. And she would get in the car and say, "Did you get a call?" Because apparently stuff had happened, but I didn't get a call. But anyway, so she was having, that was how it was manifesting for her. She's having lots of outbursts. I didn't know what sensory issues were at that time, but in third grade, we had a sensory profile done. In third grade, we got that evaluation back and they're telling me all these deficits. They thought it was phenomenal that she was 2 grade levels ahead in math, but she was 2 grade levels below in reading. They never suggested holding her back. I probably would have lost my mind if they had.
Or you're just trying to cover the whole range, right? Top tier.
Yeah, I like it.
She's always been precious about math. She'd write on the top of her papers, "Math rocks."
And Rory, do you remember any of the stuff that your mom's talking about right now? Do you remember in the kindergarten time? First grade? Have you blocked it all out? And I say that jokingly, but also quite seriously. Traumatic events like that, many times you just try to I don't even want to remember that. That was just so unpleasant.
I don't remember that. I still don't. She told me this in, I don't know, high school. And I was like, wait, that happened? I don't remember most of this.
Well, count your blessings of denial and just
blocking out. We're able to laugh about it, but it's heartbreaking. And at the time, it was heartbreaking. I mean, I remember, so we had that evaluation at the public school and the evaluators telling me about all these deficit numbers. I knew that my husband was dyslexic. He had been held back in school in elementary school, but I really didn't know what dyslexia was. And so in the report evaluation, the reporting, I said, "So could it be dyslexia? My husband is dyslexic." Mm-hmm. "Oh, that's a medical term. You need to talk to your doctor." And I'm just like, okay, I'll play your silly game. I'll go ask the pediatrician. And so took her to the pediatrician and I said, "This is what, we found. This is what they said." And our pediatrician is like, "Amber, this is, educational. This is not our realm." And I'm like, okay, just wanted to check the boxes.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so she was going to a year-round public charter school. So she had 6 weeks off with summer break. I felt like I had 6 weeks to figure this out.
Right.
And I literally was crying every day. I was so stressed out about this because Rory was just, she was shutting down by this point. She was crying every day. I mean, she was fine in the summer. She wasn't in school. And my mother had a hard time believing she was dyslexic. She's like, "She's so smart. And she is able to read." I said, "Well, she's reading on a kindergarten level. Right. She cannot read at a third grade level." And I found a speech pathologist at our local college who understood dyslexia. And she told me she had trained a handful of tutors years prior. And she said, "It's simple. You just need to call one of these tutors and, they've been trained in Take Flight, which is a program out of Texas that by all accounts was a gold standard program." Mm-hmm. And even when I called and found a tutor to do it, they were okay with not doing Fidelity. I didn't really understand Fidelity. But it's like, I said, "Well, we want to do it 4 times a week because we need to make progress because she is on the floor."
Right.
And they said, "Well, you need to talk to your husband and make sure you can afford 4 times a week. Maybe you just need to do 2 times a week." And I'm just like, I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're doing 4 times a week. I did end up borrowing money from my parents, and I hate to throw my husband under the bus, but literally the discussion at that time, we were young family, 3 kids. No one plans for their child not to be able to read. No one plans to spend, even for this program, a minimum of $500 a month out of the blue so that your kid can learn to read. So Scott was just like, if you cannot find the money, we cannot do this. So this was a man who knew he was dyslexic, but he himself did not really understand it.
Right.
And just knew that this, did not fit our family budget. Mm-hmm. And so at that time, fortunately, my parents were they loaned us the money. And we started Rory on the tutoring. And her 3rd grade teacher at school, when she met her at the beginning of 3rd grade, she said, I just don't think it's that bad. She just seems so smart. I said, no, it's bad. I said, she had some standardized testing that was in the negative. I'd never seen a bar graph go in the negative.
Yeah.
And I was just like, no, this is bad. So anyway, we did tutoring 4 hours a week, 2 years. I mean, I think it, ended up being about $13,000 total. We did it religiously. I got the school to give us a room. Rory had issues with being called out of class 4 days a week to go to tutoring.
Art class.
She got called out of all the favorite classes.
And how did that make you feel, Roy, about being pulled out of art class?
No, I like my art class.
She hated being called out of math. She's really strong in math, so we can afford to miss the math. But one day she was always mad. She's always mad. The tutor would email me and say, having a little bit of troubles with Rory today. And I'm just that mom. I don't put up with any of that. And so she would come home from school and I would be like, I don't care. You get in there and you smile for that woman and you do whatever she tells you. And one day Rory came home and said one of the children in math class, when Rory got called out again and she's mad, but the child said, why does Rory always get to leave? And just because, he phrased it differently. She thought she had to leave, but he thought she gets to leave. And so she picked up on that. Mm-hmm. Again, these kids are smart. But it was amazing to me that she even picked up on that. Her whole attitude was changed for several weeks because now she didn't think people thought, just were thinking she was stupid and had to be called out every day for tutoring. But anyway, we completed the tutoring. Standardized test scores. Her scores came up. They actually surpassed the students she was going to school with. Everything. I mean, it seems a miracle, like it's worked. It did what I was told it would do. And that worked really well till toward the end of middle school. We started seeing anxiety come back. She was always worried. And let me just say, her spelling was never fixed with this program. And I see it.
Yeah, people tend to understand more and more now when we say there's a difference between a speech to print program, which is going from phonological up to letters, up to reading and spelling, and what you guys had experienced is the print going down to speech. So you're going from letters and AI and what does it say, and PH and what does it say, and rule-based phonics down to the sounds can have some impact on reading, but that's not the system you need for actually more efficient spelling and being able to actually recognize what parts of words are phonetic and what parts are not. So I think that's an important point you're making here, because many people don't understand, like, well, you just didn't get what you needed. And that program does change spelling for some kids. And the truth is the print down to speech programs typically don't change spelling for most kids.
Well, and so that, and again, I was new at this. And I just, I couldn't know. And it is sad because we see so many people questioning the NOW program based on a prior experience. And we felt that way too. Like, this program failed us. Why would any other program work?
Right.
But she did well with this program through elementary school and right up until the end of middle school, starting high school. So like right at 9th grade, we started to see anxiety coming back. Spelling words and words in general are ramping up towards high school. And so that's what we were seeing, is she really did not have that phonological base to, decode words on her own. but she'd been able to mask it with the simpler words of the elementary and middle school level. So anyway, we get to high school, and that is where the wheels really came off the bus. We had to get her moved from an AP chemistry class, partly because the teacher he wanted her to memorize everything.
Took an AP biology class. That was too much reading. I dropped it. So, and I had to take the advanced chemistry class with it. And then he wanted me to memorize everything. And I'm like, can't do this.
And, we're even making all these, that even in that people that work with chemistry, the periodic table is on the wall. No one has to memorize it. Why do you think this needs to happen? So anyway, so she was capable of doing all of this work, but she was not capable of the memory component the teacher was forcing on her and the rest of the class. And Rory does on her evaluations. I mean, she's like triple deficit. So she has poor memory, poor retrieval from memory, and poor phonological. So she's, was pretty, and again, I'm going like, well, we've had intervention. Why is this not working? And
it was worse because softball games were cut in. I missed classes for softball games, and I switched right before to the normal chemistry class. And that teacher let me work by myself. And I was like, thank you.
Yeah. So and then the school was fighting about, but she's capable of doing this. I'm like, well, she's not capable with this teacher. It's like, we all know she's smart. And it was sad to say, okay, well, we're just going to drop the AP and just do regular old, biology, chemistry, whatever. And I had her reevaluated. Well, I asked for triple time, her accommodations for standardized testing. And that was one of the clear alarm bells going off as they did the PSAT. Her school does it for everyone to get ready for college testing. And she could not finish the PSAT with her accommodations. So I asked for triple time, and the school said, well, we're not going to do that unless you have her reevaluated. So I thought, well, I'll play your silly game. And I had her reevaluated, and I sat and I almost cried during the reading of the evaluation. The person that had done them, who was somebody close to us and had a lot of background with dyslexia and testing, she said, if I did not know your story, if I did not know that you've done everything correctly, if I did not know she's already been intervened with a good program, I would think she's never had intervention by these test scores.
Wow.
And here we are in 10th grade, 16 years old, and we are out of time to do another intervention that's going to be 2 to 5 years. And also now we've been burned, so we don't have any proof that any of these programs work. So why would we think that a program we're doing? And, it was even suggested, well, let's just do a program and we'll get her as much as we can get. And hopefully that will be enough. And I'm just like, that's not good enough. But I was willing. I said, well, could we do it twice in the summer? Could we sign up for this? Can we, she was going to miss all of her summer stuff. And I mean, it was just it really put a cog in everything in our household. Yeah. And about this time, someone named Tim Conway was popping up on all of our Facebook feeds in our dyslexia group, Arkansas Dyslexia Support Group. And my good friend, who's like a sister, Audie Allenbaugh, texted me, and she was at one of these school meetings with us when we're dropping all these AP classes. And she knows Rory is very smart. And she knew that we've done everything we're supposed to do. And she said, I think Tim Conway has got the real deal. And I think you really just need to do a deep dive into this, and that this is the thing that needs to happen for Rory. So that was like in December of 2018.
Right.
And so we did. I mean, I did, because I'm also with my background with my husband saying, we're not paying for anything. Find your own money. So I'm just like, So I did, and I did what everybody does. You know, I Googled the heck out of you. I looked for bad reviews. I looked for anybody that knew anything about this program, and no one's really talking about it at the time. And I know why people don't talk about it, because you go and you get whatever it is you need, if it works for your kid or not, you know, but you do it and then you move on with your life. And it is easy to leave all this trauma behind.
Yeah.
But anyway, we did, you know, and then my husband, though, I'd been making him help with high school work. So Scott, we were both exhausted from
Yeah.
helping her nonstop with high school. And he goes to bed early because he gets up early. And when she was sick to death of me at 9 o'clock at night, I would be in waking him up. I'm like, get up. She hates me. Help her do this paper. And, you know, he would wander downstairs, and she could not even, like, for writing, she could not even do Scott. One of his workarounds is make bullet points of the main ideas. She could not even do bullet points. And, you know, in high school, you have all these little narrative papers.
Yeah.
So there were two of us. And one night he looked at me, he said, how is she going to do college? She cannot even do high school. And so I had his buy-in from the get-go, which a lot of moms that I talk to that are considering now, it's always like, got to convince my husband. And I'm like, have him help with homework. There's nothing eye-opening like dad doing homework.
Right. And see firsthand the struggle, but it's not a lack of effort. You know,
No.
and Rory was putting in more effort, more time than her classmates were, but not getting better outcomes.
There were times, man, I quote, that I literally said, Rory, it's 1 a.m. You got to stop where you are and you got to go to bed, because we got to get up at 6 a.m. and start all over again.
Yeah.
I mean, she could never catch up. And she was just exhausted. And, you know, and even now, I mean, that's one of her things that she knows that she has to do. She has to rest. She has to give her brain a break and be fresh. But no, so it was hard. Again, I'm an advocate. I know about all these dyslexia programs. I know a ton of interventionists in these dyslexia programs, and they were all telling me, why are you doing this? We know it takes 2 to 5 years for a dyslexia program to work. And I'm like, what if we've just been fed that? What if it doesn't? And I said, and you know what? I said, we're going to go try this because we're out of options. We're going to go try this. And I said, you know what? If it doesn't work, we'll know quickly. We won't know at the end of 5 years. We'll know in 8 weeks if this worked or not.
And she didn't have 5 more years. At age 16, there isn't 5 more years to hope the program works, hope that the skills start to close up. And like you said, you guys already done a multi-year program and an OG take flight program with Fidelity, as best as you could get from somebody. And then at some point, then all those accommodations break down. But let me have Rory jump in for a second. Rory, all the background we've covered so far, what are your thoughts about that? Or what do you remember about that? Or did you really stay up till 1 a.m. trying to work on papers? And
I don't remember staying up. I don't remember staying up till 1 a.m. until I went to college, except for when I was like, you know, after your program, I would stay up reading. But because I do love to read, after my first intervention, I read all the Harry Potter series, read the whole Harry Potter series. It was still like audiobook, and I'd read along, and that like really kickstart me loving to read. But it was just like, I always thought I was dumb, and then it wasn't until like 6th grade or something, me and my friends were looking at our report cards, and she was like, yeah, I got a C in this. And I was like, oh, I got an A in reading. This is interesting. It's like, oh, I'm not actually dumb, but also like I just like sort of remember like mom and dad, it was the states and capitals test.
Oh my gosh.
And us sitting on our bed and my dad helping me with like his snaky hand puppet, helping me remember all the states and capitals, but still couldn't do it. Thank God the states and capitals, I only had to take that once.
I found those flashcards not too long ago, and I could not throw them away. I mean, it's just like.
And if you bring him forward, you might cause her trauma and have an anxiety reaction if she sees those. But what most people don't understand, Rory, is your phonological system is one of the brain's filing cabinet systems. It's storing words by sound. And that's what phonological is. Phonological are speech sounds. And so when you have weaker phonological awareness, it's not that you have a secondary or you have an additional memory deficit. It's if you don't have the phonological awareness for the sounds, the memory's not happening. So it's not a memory problem per se. It's if you're not perceiving and storing all the sounds, it doesn't get to memory. And if it doesn't get stored easily and efficiently, then it's also hard to remember them and bring them back because, again, you're trying to bring them back by sounds. And so, but it feels like I just can't remember. I can't remember because you've got situations like that where you're supposed to learn those exact words for those exact geographical locations, and it's not working well.
Yeah. But I know, like, I remember all the good teachers. I remember all the bad teachers. My favorite teachers, I have their phone numbers, and we talk occasionally. Or Mr. James, he was my world history teacher, my softball coach. He was the first teacher ever to give me the packet of notes that were in my accommodation on the first day of school.
Wow.
Like, never happened. I've always had, like, parents have always had to ask or whatever. It was like the first thing I was like, I'm sorry, this is actually how this is supposed to work. I just get them. I'm not supposed to ask for them. He did that with everyone. And I was like, wow, okay, this is actually how a teacher's supposed to do stuff. Like,
Yeah,
I love him.
To be a battle.
Yeah.
No. So, yeah. I don't know. I remember
your friend and you seeing that you got a better grade than she did. Other things that gave you some better insight or better understanding of your intellect, because you now know you are very bright. You got a really strong intellect, and this is where I get to tell kids these things, and they love it, and they also hate it at the same time. You can say, but you have to thank your mom and dad because IQ is genetic, so thank them for that. But you can also blame them for the reading problems and the other problems because that's genetic too.
me and my dad high five when we have like a dyslexia thing. High five for our struggles. I don't know. I remember one time we were looking at the softball teams we were going to play, and it was some weird name, and I was on the computer typing them, and I was like struggle busing to get it. It was after yours, but it was just like this one girl on my team was just like, sound it out, sound it out, sound it out. And I like had to go out of the room before I like wanted to strangle her, jokingly. But like, it was just like stuff like that. I'm like, that doesn't actually help. Or like some of my college acquaintances or friends, they use the R word. I'm like, really hate that because like I don't think I was ever called it, but I probably would have been if I didn't have all these interventions and my parents. So it's always interesting. So
well, and I do remember that Rory was pretty articulate before she had the NOW program, but she really did begin talking more after the program because I think it really unlocked her words. Because, like you talk about, not being able to retrieve words, for, whatever reason with the phonological and being able to store it. But I do remember that and just being like, wow, where are these words coming from? And she did. That was a big problem for her through school, coming home from school. And, as a parent, you're supposed to ask, how was your day? And knowing that she's struggling anyway, but she never wanted to talk about it. And she would always say, I can't remember, what happened. And I never knew if that was a cop-out or she really just couldn't. And so that's what I think, I kind of clued in on is, wow, I think she really has not been able to find the words this whole time to communicate.
And Rory, are you 21 now? One of the viewers is asking what your age is
yeah,
currently.
21.
21. When we
turned 22 in October.
All right, almost 20. And your round of intervention with the NOW program started at Morris Center in Trinidad, which not everyone makes that big of a jump, but it's also the lowest price point, so it makes the most sense financially. And it's a little adventure, so who doesn't like a little adventure? And certainly your parents are known for adventure as well. And so, yeah, you put 8 weeks into that Morris Center Clinic in Trinidad, but you're doing a multitude of things. You're working on your phonological system, but you're also working with the psychologist to really work through the anxiety and the frustrations and trying to understand what had happened and what was going on. And then you also were working on understanding the sensory motor skills. Yeah, the
Yes.
OT. And
I
what's
love
your
OT.
recollection of OT? What's your recollection of like, what am I doing in this gym? Do you have any
I
aha or
loved it.
like?
I I think I always did like aerial arts and stuff, so I think they would always get a kick when I was doing something and my feet were pointed, because that's like how you're supposed to train, in like aerial arts. And so it was just like a great hour of like, oh, playing a game that's actually helpful, or like getting energy out and not having to. I love y'all. But like sitting at a table and doing like reading intervention for 6 hours a day. I was like, the days it was just me, it was like you guys had a holiday, but it wasn't American holiday. And so I would come in by myself and I went get OT. I was like really more exhausted at the end of the day. I'm like, but I loved OT and I loved everyone there.
Mm-hmm. Gives you a reset. But give us the timeline. So Kimberly's asking, so we know you're at Morris Center for 8 weeks, and then you left and went back to Arkansas, and you're online to finish the programs. What was the timeline for that, Amber, when we actually finished up all the other stuff online? Because she did the NF program first for the phonological, because
that took about 5. Yeah, we went. She had maybe like 1 or 2 week break when she got home, and then we went right back to it. So it took about 5 months to finish up mental imagery. She got done right before Christmas.
And she was doing just 1 session a day, 5 days a week. Is that right?
Yeah, and if we missed a session during the week, we do a makeup on the weekend.
Right. Which is pretty quick. That means like about 100 hours, which is not a lot of time when you think about it. 100 hours, you've now empowered your imagery for listening comprehension, your imagery, because part of retrieval too is not phonological. Part of imagery is conceptual and imagery-based, things, and part of speaking is also conceptual, visualizing what you want to say to help you organize your words to say it more coherently. And then that's also the precursor to the next program she did, which was the grammar and writing.
Yeah, and so she started that in January, right after the Christmas break, and finished that in like April or May. So it was like right at a year and a half. And when you put the 8 weeks in Trinidad, and then 10 months to do the other 2 programs, 5 months and 5 months.
Right.
So, and then, and COVID happened in this.
Yeah.
And she got, school shut down. She got sent home. And the whole school system is worried about what she's getting, that they're not getting to teach. But I didn't care. I knew she was getting what she needed because she was doing grammar and writing. And as I said before, she had a horrible time trying to do papers.
Right.
And so I was thrilled. I just knew, we were paying for it, but I knew she was getting what she needed. I really wasn't concerned about what the state of Arkansas thought she needs, as her educational standard. So I couldn't be happier with the program. I really just think if you've got a kid, as like all of our kids that are so clobbered with dyslexia, don't worry about school. Just, the NOW program will do it. And especially, if you're able to go on site, the whole ramping up and really pouring into these kids everything they need to match that IQ. That was phenomenal because no other program can offer that. If you're just seeing, not to be, slamming interventionists, but when you're just taking your child for private tutoring, they don't have the knowledge base and the skills, and they've got just an out of the box program that they're really not supposed to deviate from. And, with the administrative behind the scenes at NOW, and the way that you are monitoring what these students are doing, where the big deficits are, and working on those skills. I didn't have to worry about it. I just knew that y'all had it taken care of, and the end result. And she did. She has continued to get better post program.
And when
You know,
did the programs end? Has it been 2.5 years, 3.5 years?
Well, she finished in 2020, so like 4 years.
All right, 4 years.
When she went to college, at first she had, a bunch of general ed classes, and we would do Zoom. I would help her with her papers if she wanted help.
I love you.
And it was like, oh, I've got to meet with Rory at 10 o'clock tonight to help with this paper. But it was just like, it was amazing because I could see, that she was so improved from high school. She still just needed a little direction. I mean, I would tell her, I said, you've got all these main ideas, these bullet points. I said, if you run all this together, I said, you got a paragraph here, you got a paragraph here, you got a paragraph here. Finally, like at the next semester, she was like, Mom, it's too slow when you help me. I think I got it. So she doesn't, it's amazing to me because she needed so much help in high school. I mean, it was just overwhelming. We were exhausted. The whole thing, she was exhausted. We were exhausted. And it was just amazing in high school, even right after the program and while she was doing those online pieces that, she was doing it.
Right.
It was an immediate difference from when she got home from foundations, that she was pretty independent at school. And I mean, I would check in and I would, email our teachers and ask, how things were going, let us know. But that's how we kind of ended up with architecture. They had a class in high school and the teacher was like, yeah, she got done 2 days ahead of time. And I'm like, what? How is that possible? And she helps other students.
Nice.
And so it just, those skills, y'all just helped her hone in on the things that she was strong at already. But you still have to have all these other things, to go to college.
Yeah.
If you want to go to college, or if you want to, it's, that she can read her prescription bottles. I mean, little life skills like that you need, to do what you want to do.
Yep. And Rory, someone's asking, how is school now? What's your thoughts about school today?
Well, I am an architect major, so one of very hard programs. But just, I think the freshman year was the hardest, like figuring out how to write papers and do all this stuff for college, and not I love being away from my parents, but also I kind of want them, and also making new friends is great. But I think my second year, it was our history class. You have to take 3 history classes, and it was the same professor, and it was these big exams. You have to memorize all these monuments and who made the monument, what date it was, what style.
On the left side, and all these images you're storing on the right side, but you got to be able to bring them both back to do the test.
Yes. And so it was the first time I got D's on these tests. I was just trying to figure out how to study for them. And then I finally got a list. There were just French words and German words, and I'm I can't. Don't ask me how to spell. It was so long to figure out how to spell them. I couldn't do all the other stuff, and so I finally got a list.
Well, and this was the teacher too who didn't really want to do accommodations, and then she works with her disability department and her professors, and she's very good to, make sure that they're all trying, that they know they're supposed to do something a little different for her, but she handles it herself.
Yeah. And how did you do that, Rory? I mean, it's enough difficulty to memorize English named monuments and English people who built the monuments or designed the monuments. How did you remember the German, the French, the Russian? How do you think you did that?
I would recognize the word itself. I couldn't really pronounce it or figure out how to sort of spell it enough for her to because she was you only get one letter off for it to be correct. And I'm okay. So, but me and my dad, we called and he was helping me draft emails of what to ask for. And then we figured out that she would give me an alphabetized list of like the monuments names and the architects and like the cities that were like really hard, and some terms that were like German terms for some type of fixture or whatever. And so she would alphabetize those. She wouldn't give me the dates, which was like fine, but that's what we did. And so I would know what the monument was and what it was called, and like, but I like couldn't figure out enough to spell it to get, I'm like, oh, and so I would have that list, and that eased my anxiety also of like knowing what I have this list, like even if I don't know the person's name or how to spell it, like I can find it and within reason. I'm like, oh, that's it, because that's what it looks like. Because when you're studying these things, it's like everyone uses a different pronunciation, everyone spells it differently. So it was always interesting, and like learning just how to study personally was like really hard. By the second semester for the second history, I like figured out how to study. I was getting B's like consistently on my exams, because hers was really exam based. So that really helped, just like figuring out and learning to advocate for myself was really hard. I like never really, until maybe the end of high school, didn't really know how to advocate for myself. I remember in high school there was a spelling thing, and she wasn't at the 504 meeting, and she was like, oh no, you have to do all of them. I'm like, okay, because like that's an adult, so I'm gonna say what she says and does it on Mom Goes Mom. But but just like learning how to study and like, knowing what friends help when I'm studying and what friends like don't help when I'm studying, because some of my friends they just like they study all together, and I'm like, this is too much for my brain to handle, all of you arguing what is right and what is wrong. So it's like either me by myself or me, like one of my friends in a coffee shop. I remember before the exam we were just flipping flashcards and making rhymes to figure out what things went to what. So
got it. And David's asking, how much reading do you do just for fun? Probably not a lot, because college, but like when you're not in college, semester break or something like that, or yeah, how would you say
I know in high school I read a lot more than I do in college right now. There is like I love reading. I love doing all like fantasy stuff. That's like my whole thing. I always said like Harry Potter got me into reading, and so that's like what I like. And it's like my mom would go to bed and I'm reading on the couch, just on my iPad or on a book, and she's like, I'm going to bed, can you lock up? I'm like, yep, I'll lock up, or I'm up till 3 a.m. reading. So it depends. Now I don't, usually I just like after school, I just like sit down and I watch a show. And so because it's like, it's easier for me to like stop myself watching a show than it is easier for me to stop myself reading a book and go back to school and go work until 4 a.m. So, because if I could choose, I would read a book until 4 a.m. than working on my schoolwork.
And
but I do love.
How have your movie skills changed over the years? I mean, how much are you imaging when you read books? A lot? A little? What do you think?
I don't really, I think a little bit, not like to the extent when I was learning how to do it, but like occasionally I'm like, I think about it, I'm like, oh, okay, this makes sense. Or I can remember like what this person's subscription was or where they're at. So not as much, but like I know when I'm struggling, I can use it, and I can like, I do it. I feel like I do it a little more in like textbook readings or like weird stories they want us to read about architect. But
usually
I do a little
information you have to hold on to for the textbook reading. There's more information you have to be able to retrieve. The pleasure reading it's just for fun. So just kind of the images kind of flow through and you kind of seeing what's happening. But it's not like you're trying to store it so you can retell it to somebody else.
Yes. It's like, oh, I can, or like, I like it so much I don't need to image it. I like just enjoy it. It's with, reading an architecture textbook, you got to like make yourself
push through.
Remember it? Yeah, push through is the right word. This semester I had a theory class and it was so much reading. They were very interesting readings, but it was like a lot of readings. But like those I sort of tried to do imagery a little bit, but I still like listen to books. I can like read it by myself, but I always enjoy like also hearing it and reading it. It just like makes it like harder to get distracted by with audiobooks. Me and my dad love audiobooks.
Far better than the DVD version. So because you're creating the movies and you're just really focused on the content.
Yes.
You know, that's a powerful piece of it as well. So what, let me ask the question this way, because yours description of that you are adjusting the classes and you're making movies when you need to make movies and you're getting the reading done and you're writing the papers without help from mom. Most people think that just sounds like snake oil. That's just really, that doesn't happen for kids with dyslexia. And you know that I've been accused of selling snake oil pretty much my whole professional career. I would jokingly tell my children that I spend pretty much 5 days a week convincing people that we're not lying and we're not selling snake oil, that we did $3 million randomized controlled trial studies and we borrowed research from these other cognitive psychologists, and it's all evidence-based or research-based. But what would you want parents to know as possible for a teenager? Because you really didn't start interventions with us, you know, with the Morris Center and the nowprograms.com until you were 16. And then you were done in about, you know, like Amber said, your mom said, like, you know, 8 weeks in the clinic and then 10 months online.
I didn't really notice it until I came back from Trinidad and I was texting a friend or Googling something and I spelled a word and it was right and I didn't need autocorrect. And like most of my time it's like spelling, I'm like, I can't get it close enough to get autocorrect to know what it is. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, that was like my first thing. I'm like, oh, I can spell this, and autocorrect knows what I'm spelling, and I'm also correct. One of those things.
Autocorrect. Yeah.
I don't need autocorrect, but you know, like when you're texting, it has like the 3 suggestions. I'm like, oh, I'm spelling this correctly. That's awesome. But I just like knowing, like I still look at my friends. I'm tired, and I have a picture of my friend like wording we call it wording. Because when we print all of our drawings and stuff, we have to have a synopsis, and we're all like, it's 4 a.m. We worked on this for 2 months and we're tired of it. And so we get our friend, and like, I just tell my friend, I'm like, okay, this is what I'm saying. I just can't put it into words, but I know if I like slept and did it that night, I could do it. Also learning like, I think it was fall semester. It was just like, I was really struggling, and I was just like, told my partner, I'm like, hey, my brain, I would always say like, hey, my brain's struggling. My brain's hurting. I need like a few minutes to decompress. And then he got annoyed that I was using that saying, but like, I just like, I know like all my friends, like I got an award for most likely to stay up all night finishing a project. Which is true, but it like takes me longer to do it. So that's why everyone's like, why are you always here? I'm like, because it takes me longer. But then I also know I'm like, oh, I have a cutoff time. I told myself at 3, if I am not actively doing something, I'm going to go home and sleep for a couple hours before I come back.
Good.
I try to do that, and like breaks, I'm like sleeping in. I don't do anything, and then hang out with my friends. But it does where I like, you don't notice it while you're doing it, but then afterwards, it's like, I think afterwards it was just like I'm like, I could spell something. And so it's like, sometimes like I ask my sister or my mom to look over a paper or something, or a friend, but and like they edit like a few wording situations. But it's like, I usually do majority of it. Like, I think my sister Eilish is impressed by how much I actually do now. She doesn't have to write the whole paper. She just has to add like a paragraph or something there to get it to, I'm like, okay, I've made my thing. I don't know how to make it to the word count now. so that's like my next step is learning how to BS some things. But
Embellishment. Just embellish.
if you wish. This is the adult term. And so I just like, I can sit down. It might take me longer to write a paper than my friends who can do it, in an hour or two, but I know like I need to set aside time and do this. And I'm like, I will get it done. And I get like, a B or something on it, and that's okay. I also know that I get really stressed when things are close to the due date, like it's an hour before we have to turn it in. And so like me and my friend, we always get partnered up together because we do it. She like likes the stress anxiety because it makes her work harder. I'm like, no, we're want to start this. We're going to open it. We're going to read it. We're going to figure out what we're going to do it. Then we'll close it and work on it the next day. I'm like, you got to like figure out what you're doing first.
Create
so
the
just
plan.
like look at the plan, figure out the plan. Okay, I'm like, okay, we'll start the plan tomorrow. But just like learning how you want to study, and like that I can actually write a paper that I need to write and that actually sounds good.
And when you were 16, did you think that was going to happen?
No, I don't think I would not be in college right now if I didn't do this program. I'd probably
I don't know, you might be working for me.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, a lot of parents, I mean, there's no shame in that. And I have a very successful business that is in the architecture field, that she could take over if she wanted to. But, and a lot of families are like that. There is a business that you can channel your struggling dyslexic to, when they can't succeed on their own. But I just think it's so important that, that she gets to do what she wants to do. And she just did not have the skills for that, the last few years of high school. And it's just a complete turnaround. I mean, I just look at her today, and I do look at her output at school, and she gets a lot of compliments from her professors. And I mean, it's gratifying, and knowing that we've all worked hard as a family to give her these opportunities. And yes, it's expensive, and it seems more expensive than some of these other programs because you are packing it into a short period of time rather than stretching it out, and then not knowing if what you chose is going to be, is going to have actually remediated your child at the end of the program.
Right.
And I feel like I have been there, that I have paid for a program that ultimately didn't work, but I figured it out and was lucky enough to find something else. And I think if you do have a student that's in elementary school, I mean, go ahead and do the NOW program. So then they have all those school years to just hone these new skills that they've learned instead of learning it in high school and then have to hit the ground running with it. I wish we had done this. I wish I'd known about it in elementary school. But again, knowing what I know, our previous experience, I mean, I would have been too naive. My husband would have been too naive to go with something, that you're trying to figure out if it's snake oil or not. And when you think all dyslexia programs are the same or created equal, that you're going to pick the thing that is lower cost and closer to home.
Right.
And that everybody else around you is doing.
And you got a comment here, Rory, from your friend April Terry. And April's talking about how many hours you spent on the phone with her, helping her understand, all the options, what was happening, what were the options, and then what she was able to learn from your experiences. And this is what we need as well, is parents sharing the experiences with the parents, because there's more misinformation in the dyslexia world than there is accurate information.
Well, and April and I talk about this frequently, and she recommends other people that are thinking about the program to talk to me. And I have a hard time being an advocate now, because I really only advocate for the NOW program, because to me, there is just no point in wasting your money on something that may not work well for your child, and you're not going to figure it out to the end of the program. And you may not remediate your child enough. And
Right.
so I cannot in good conscience recommend programs that schools typically are doing. But April and I talk about, so many parents have the gut feeling that the program they're in is not working, or it's not working well, or it should be working better. But, the therapist said, the interventionist says, oh, it's going to work at the end. We just
Right.
got to keep on doing it. It's going to work by the end.
2 more years.
Yeah, and so parents just, they don't know, they've never been here, and they just sometimes need someone to say, yes, I experience this too. And if you think, that maybe they're not remediated because their spelling is not fixed, guess
Right.
what? You're probably right.
Exactly.
You
Or
know,
if you think they are remediated, but their spelling isn't fixed, then actually you might be wrong. Because
Yeah.
if you're fully remediated, you should see spelling strengthen and the reading skills strengthen as well. Both skills should be equally stronger if you've truly had successful remediation.
and this, and the same thing, if they've been remediated, but you're still having to help with homework every
Right.
night, that you don't have a family life, you just have 24/7 homework. And I just can't even enough say how much it changed our family life to have Rory remediated with the NOW program. I mean, we were all drowning over here. And it was life-changing. And it turned out that about the time she got home from Trinidad, I got diagnosed with colon cancer. And I needed to focus on that.
Yeah.
And I really, felt like it was kind of a God thing that we were steered to you in the time that we were. Because believe me, if I'd gotten diagnosed before they went to Trinidad, Scott would have never taken her.
Yeah.
We would have had to work out something else. And we would have worked out something else, but it was perfect timing for our family, because we didn't know that we had kind of an emergent situation coming at us.
Right.
And we were so overwhelmed with trying to help her with school all the time.
Mm-hmm. Including Rory.
Including Rory. She was completely overwhelmed. It was hard for me to even get her to a therapist to work on her anxiety, because the therapists are only available during the 9 to 5. She does not want to miss school to go talk to a therapist. Yep. And we were so fortunate in so many ways to find you all, because even after she came home, she kept seeing Izzy, your therapist in Trinidad that was employed with you, online for 2 years. Right. And it was
y'all were the trauma. Yeah, we call it really to work through the trauma, to process all the trauma of the struggles, of the frustrations. And when you have a child who's not been an anxious child growing up, they've been pretty much on the regular go with the flow kind of deal with the child. But as school got worse and worse, and the difficulties grew at school, and then you start to see anxiety come along as well, then that's your gut feeling that should be telling you it's probably the school stuff causing the anxiety, not the other way around. And so if you aim for therapy for anxiety, which is a symptom of all the struggles of the learning difficulties, then you're actually just treating the symptoms. You're actually not treating what's causing the anxiety problems. And so that's the whole goal too with Rory, is empower the skills, empower that Ferrari brain with skills at that Ferrari level. And then she can perform at the level that genetically she's wired to do. And again, Rory, thank mom and dad for the Ferrari brain. That is genetic. But now that you've got the ability to do it, how does the anxiety feel for you now, Rory? Is it the same level as it was in high school? Is it lower? Is it worse? What do you think?
Oh, no, I don't know. My mom might have other opinions. I feel like I know more when I'm anxious about things, but that also might just be me maturing. But I feel anxiety a lot. Like, I always have anxiety, but it's like not a constant. I can't do anything, or I'm like, I know I'm like, okay, I can afford to skip this class to work on something else. It's not that. It's not like I'm gonna fail everything.
That is catastrophic.
Yes, catastrophic.
Well, and she has a therapist still up at college. She lives 3.5 hours away from home.
Right.
So she has a therapist at Fayetteville, and she's still on medication for anxiety. And but she does very well at managing her appointments, managing her meds, and again, she's an adult now, and she sees that the effort that when she puts in, of the things that she's been taught, whether it's how to manage her anxiety or how to manage her classwork.
Yeah.
She's doing really well at adulting.
And that's the goal. Bring it all together, put it all together, and let Rory succeed. Well, Rory and Amber, I can't thank you guys enough for jumping on the show with me today and sharing those personal pieces of information, the transformation. And I always have to say, but Rory, even though our programs are backed by millions of dollars of research and they've got tremendous amount of expertise from people like myself as a brain scientist, they actually don't work if you don't put in the effort and the energy. So you are the magic ingredient that made it all work, but we have the actual formula of the program to let you work through that allowed you to unlock those skills, unlock better reading, better spelling. Now you're right because spell check can't fix it. That's just a great aha experience. And then you're learning how to manage life because you're not having to work around and try to accommodate, compensate, and work with too many deficits that are things that were so prominent in your life early on. So I just congrats. Kudos to you guys for a job well done. The Morris Center and the Now Company are just thrilled that we got to be a small part of this. And we can't wait to see what you're going to go design or what you're going to do with your life after you finish college. But the bottom line is you get to choose. You've got the skills and you can choose what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Well, we could not be more grateful to you all. We consider you all and the Trini people and the people she worked with online as all part of our family. And, I just look at her today and cannot believe what an independent young woman she has blossomed into. So thank you so much to everybody.
Congrats, Rory. Now get back to studying. I know you're not done with your semester yet.
I'm definitely done with my semester. Huh?
Go scrape and don't scrape your thumb.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great rest of the summer, Rory, as you're on your internship, and good luck with the rest of the next school year. You'll be entering your senior year of college next year. Is that right?
The first senior year?
It's a 5-year program. So.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's the
2
first
more
senior
years.
or the 5th senior year. I got it.
Yes,
there you go.
Well, congrats. And as David says, rock on, Rory. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.